Sarah Martinez stepped off the bus at Westfield Military Academy with her single duffel bag slung over her shoulder. The imposing stone buildings loomed before her, their windows reflecting the morning sun like watching eyes. At 17, she was smaller than most of the other new arrivals, her petite frame making her appear even younger than her years. But her dark eyes held a determination that spoke of inner strength forged through hardship. The other cadets were already forming groups, comparing their backgrounds and achievements. Sarah overheard fragments of conversations about prep schools, family military traditions, and expensive training programs. She clutched her acceptance letter tighter, remembering how she had worked 3 part-time jobs to save enough money for the application fees and uniform requirements. "Another scholarship case," whispered Marcus Chun, a tall boy with perfectly pressed clothes and an air of superiority. His father was a decorated general, and Marcus had attended the most exclusive military prep school in the country. He looked Sarah up and down dismissively. "They're really lowering the standards these days." Sarah pretended not to hear, focusing instead on the orientation packet in her hands. She had dreamed of this moment for years, ever since her older brother Jake had been killed in action overseas. He had always told her she was tougher than she looked, that she had something special inside her that others couldn't see. This academy was her chance to prove him right. The head of admissions, Colonel Williams, called for attention. His voice boomed across the courtyard as he began explaining the academy's traditions and expectations. Sarah listened intently, memorizing every word. She knew she would have to work twice as hard as everyone else to prove she belonged here. "You will be divided into companies of 30 cadets each," Colonel Williams announced. "Your company will become your family, your support system, and your competition. Excellence is not just expected here, it is demanded." As the cadets were sorted into their companies, Sarah found herself in Delta Company alongside Marcus Chun and several other cadets who clearly came from privileged backgrounds. She also noticed a few other scholarship students, but they seemed just as intimidated as she felt. Their company commander was Captain Rodriguez, a stern woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and an uncompromising demeanor. She had served 2 tours in Afghanistan before becoming an instructor at the academy. As she surveyed her new cadets, her gaze lingered on Sarah for a moment longer than the others. "I don't care where you came from or who your parents are," Captain Rodriguez stated firmly. "In my company, you earn respect through performance, not pedigree. Some of you will thrive here. Others will wash out within the first month. The only question is which category you'll fall into." The first week was a blur of uniform fittings, medical examinations, and administrative procedures. Sarah kept her head down, speaking only when spoken to and observing everything around her. She noticed how the other cadets had already begun forming alliances and social hierarchies. Marcus Chun had quickly established himself as an unofficial leader among the wealthy students, while the scholarship cadets gravitated toward each other for mutual support. Sarah's roommate was Jennifer Walsh, whose grandfather had been a Medal of Honor recipient. Jennifer was friendly enough, but she made it clear that she considered Sarah's presence at the academy to be some kind of social experiment. "I'm sure you're very nice," Jennifer said while organizing her extensive collection of expensive toiletries. "But I just don't understand why they're accepting so many charity cases these days." Rather than respond defensively, Sarah simply nodded and focused on organizing her few possessions. She had learned long ago that actions spoke louder than words, and she intended to let her performance do the talking. The academic portion of the program proved challenging, but manageable for Sarah. Years of working multiple jobs while maintaining straight A's in high school had taught her excellent time management skills. While other cadets struggled to balance their coursework with military training, Sarah found a rhythm that worked for her. The physical training, however, was where she truly began to stand out. Sarah had been running since she was 12 years old, using it as an escape from the chaos of her home life after her father left. What started as a coping mechanism had developed into genuine athletic ability. She could run longer and faster than most of her classmates, male or female. During their first PT test, Sarah finished the 2-mile run a full minute ahead of the next fastest cadet. She completed more push-ups and sit-ups than anyone else in her company, including cadets who were 6 inches taller and 50 pounds heavier. The instructors took notice, but so did her fellow cadets. Probably on steroids, Marcus muttered to his friends as Sarah jogged past them during a cool-down lap. There's no way someone that small should be that fast. But it wasn't just Sarah's physical performance that impressed the instructors. During weapons training, she demonstrated an unusual level of focus and precision. While other cadets struggled with the fundamentals of marksmanship, Sarah seemed to have an intuitive understanding of ballistics and wind compensation. Sergeant Martinez, the weapons instructor, pulled her aside after her first trip to the rifle range. "Where did you learn to shoot like that, Cadet Martinez?" "My brother taught me, Sergeant," Sarah replied simply. She didn't elaborate on the hours they had spent at the local range before Jake deployed, or how shooting had become her way of feeling connected to him after his death. "Well, your brother taught you well," Sergeant Martinez said, examining Sarah's target with obvious approval. "These groupings are tighter than what I see from cadets with years of competitive shooting experience." Word of Sarah's abilities began to spread throughout the academy. Some instructors were impressed by her natural talent and work ethic. Others seemed skeptical, as if her success somehow diminished the achievements of cadets from more traditional military backgrounds. The social dynamics within Delta Company became increasingly complex as Sarah's capabilities became apparent. The scholarship students looked to her as proof that they could succeed despite their humble origins. The wealthy cadets, particularly Marcus's group, viewed her success as a threat to their assumed superiority. "It's not fair," complained Bradley Thompson, whose family owned a chain of military surplus stores. "She's obviously had professional training that she's not telling anyone about. No one just naturally shoots like that." Jennifer Walsh found herself caught in the middle. As Sarah's roommate, she witnessed firsthand the long hours Sarah spent studying and preparing her equipment. She saw how Sarah carefully budgeted every penny of her small allowance, and how she mended her own uniforms rather than buying replacements. But she also felt pressure from her social circle to maintain distance from the scholarship students. 3 weeks into the program, Delta Company faced their first major evaluation. The combat fitness test would measure not only individual performance, but also teamwork and leadership under stress. The company would be divided into squads of 6 cadets each, and their collective performance would determine weekend privileges for the entire month. Captain Rodriguez announced the squad assignments with typical efficiency. Sarah found herself grouped with Marcus Chun, Bradley Thompson, Jennifer Walsh, and 2 other cadets from privileged backgrounds. It was clear that the assignments had been carefully planned to force cadets from different backgrounds to work together. "Great," Marcus said loud enough for Sarah to hear. "We get stuck with the charity case. There go our weekend passes." The comment stung, but Sarah had dealt with worse. Growing up in a rough neighborhood had taught her to ignore taunts and focus on what she could control. She began mentally preparing for the challenges ahead, drawing on the lessons her brother had taught her about staying calm under pressure. The night before the evaluation, Sarah lay awake in her narrow bunk, staring at the ceiling. She could hear Jennifer's steady breathing from the bed across the room and the distant sounds of cadets talking in the hallways. Tomorrow would be her first real test at the academy, her chance to prove that she belonged here despite what others thought about her background. She thought about Jake, about the last conversation they had shared before his deployment. He had told her that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was the ability to act despite being afraid. Tomorrow, she would need every ounce of courage she could muster. The evaluation would take place on the Academy's obstacle course, a grueling combination of physical challenges designed to test endurance, strength, and mental toughness. But Sarah had heard rumors from upperclassmen that the real test wasn't the obstacles themselves. It was how cadets responded when things went wrong, when their carefully laid plans fell apart under pressure. As she finally drifted off to sleep, Sarah's last conscious thought was a promise to herself and to Jake's memory. Whatever happened tomorrow, she would not give Marcus Chun and his friends the satisfaction of seeing her fail. She would prove that heart and determination mattered more than money and connections. The Academy's bells chimed midnight, marking the transition from preparation to execution. In less than 8 hours, Sarah Martinez would face her first real challenge at Westfield Military Academy. She had no idea that the combat fitness test would become the defining moment of her cadet career, or that her performance would reshape the social dynamics of Delta Company forever. What she did know was that she was ready to fight for her place here, ready to honor her brother's memory, and ready to show everyone exactly what a charity case could accomplish when given the chance to succeed. Dawn broke gray and cold over Westfield Military Academy as Sarah Martinez laced up her combat boots with practiced precision. The combat fitness evaluation was scheduled to begin at 0800 hours, and she had been awake since 0500, running through mental preparations and equipment checks. Her roommate, Jennifer, was still sleeping, having stayed up late the night before video, chatting with friends from her prep school. In the mess hall, tension crackled through the air like electricity. The entire freshman class would be evaluated today, but Delta Company faced additional pressure. Captain Rodriguez had made it clear that their performance would directly impact company privileges for the remainder of the month. No pressure, Sarah thought wryly as she forced down her breakfast of scrambled eggs and toast. Marcus Chun sat 3 tables away with his usual entourage, occasionally glancing in Sarah's direction with barely concealed disdain. She could see him gesturing animatedly while speaking to Bradley Thompson and the others in their squad. Whatever they were planning, she was certain it didn't involve treating her as an equal team member. Sergeant First Class Patterson entered the mess hall with the kind of purposeful stride that immediately commanded attention. Patterson was a legend at the Academy, a former Special Forces operator who had earned 3 Bronze Stars and a Purple Heart during his military career. He now served as the senior NCO for combat training, and his evaluations could make or break a cadet's future prospects. "Listen up, future officers," Patterson's voice boomed across the mess hall. "Today's evaluation is designed to test your ability to function as a unit under stress. You'll face 6 obstacle stations, each requiring different combinations of individual skill and team coordination. Your squad's overall time determines your score, but individual failures can result in automatic disqualification." Sarah's stomach tightened as Patterson continued his briefing. She had studied the obstacle course layout for weeks, memorizing every challenge and developing strategies for optimal performance. But she also knew that her squad mates viewed her as a liability rather than an asset. "The final station is new this year," Patterson announced with a slight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "It's called the Trust Fall, and it requires absolute cooperation between squad members. I won't spoil the surprise, but I will say this: squads that enter that station with internal conflicts rarely succeed." The message was clear. Personal grudges and social hierarchies had no place on the obstacle course. Sarah wondered if her squad mates had received the same message, or if they were too wrapped up in their own assumptions to listen. After breakfast, Delta Company assembled on the parade ground for final equipment inspections. Each cadet carried a 30-pound rucksack loaded with gear, wore full combat uniform, and carried a rubber training rifle. The additional weight would test their endurance throughout the course while simulating combat conditions. Captain Rodriguez walked the ranks with sharp eyes, checking every detail from boot laces to weapon positioning. When she reached Sarah, she paused for a moment longer than usual. "Ready for this, Cadet Martinez?" "Yes, ma'am," Sarah replied crisply, meeting her captain's gaze without flinching. "Good. Remember, this isn't just about individual performance. Leadership emerges under pressure, often from unexpected sources. Keep your eyes open." The comment puzzled Sarah, but she didn't have time to analyze it further. The first squads were already moving out toward the obstacle course, which was located in the wooded training area 2 miles from the main campus. The hike would serve as a warm-up and help spread out the groups to prevent overcrowding at the obstacles. Sarah's squad fell into formation with Marcus naturally taking the point position. Despite his arrogant attitude, he was physically capable and had attended leadership programs since childhood. Bradley Thompson and the other privileged cadets flanked him, while Sarah found herself bringing up the rear alongside Kevin Park, a quiet scholarship student from California. "Don't worry about them," Kevin whispered as they began the march. "Just do your best and ignore the politics." Sarah nodded, but didn't respond. She had learned that showing any sign of insecurity or concern would only fuel her detractors' confidence. Instead, she focused on maintaining proper spacing and conserving energy for the challenges ahead. The wooded trail wound through dense pine forest, with occasional clearings that offered glimpses of the obstacle course ahead. Sarah could see other squads already engaging with various challenges: rope climbs, wall traversals, and what appeared to be some kind of puzzle-solving station. 15 minutes into the march, Marcus called for a brief halt. "All right, team," he announced with mock enthusiasm. "Let's establish our strategy before we reach the course." The squad gathered in a rough circle, with Marcus positioning himself as the obvious leader. "I've studied the obstacles extensively," he continued. "My father provided detailed intelligence from his own academy days. Plus, I've had conversations with upperclassmen who've completed this course." Sarah almost rolled her eyes at Marcus's use of military terminology to describe what was essentially gossip from older students. But she listened carefully, hoping to glean useful information despite the source. "The key is efficient time management," Marcus explained. "We need to identify each person's strengths and deploy them strategically. Bradley, you're our strongest climber. Jennifer, you're excellent with puzzles and detail work. Thompson, you've got the best endurance for carrying loads." Sarah noticed that Marcus had assigned roles to everyone except her and Kevin. The slight was obviously intentional, designed to reinforce their status as outsiders within the squad. "What about Martinez and Park?" Jennifer asked, apparently recognizing the oversight. Marcus shrugged dismissively. "They can follow along and try not to slow us down. Remember, our squad time is only as fast as our slowest member." The insult hung in the air like a challenge. Sarah felt her jaw tighten, but she forced herself to remain calm. She would prove her worth through performance, not arguments. "Actually," Kevin said quietly, "Sarah's physical fitness scores are the highest in our company, and she qualified expert on her first rifle range visit. Maybe we should consider—" "Scores on paper don't mean anything out here," Bradley Thompson interrupted. "This is about real-world performance under pressure. Some people look good in controlled environments, but fall apart when things get chaotic." The implication was clear. They expected Sarah to crumble under the stress of evaluation, confirming their prejudices about scholarship students and proving their own superiority. "Fine," Marcus said, clearly ready to end the discussion. "Martinez and Park can handle any simple tasks that come up. Everyone else stick to your assigned roles, and we'll cruise through this thing." As they resumed the march, Sarah felt a familiar fire building in her chest. It was the same feeling she had experienced when neighborhood kids told her she was too small to play basketball, or when her high school counselor suggested she consider community college instead of pursuing her military academy dreams. It was the fuel that had driven her through every challenge she had ever faced. The obstacle course materialized through the trees like something from a military training manual. 6 stations were spread across a large clearing, each marked with colored flags and staffed by evaluating instructors. Other squads moved between obstacles with varying degrees of success, their voices carrying across the field as they encouraged each other or argued about strategy. "Delta Squad 7, report for initial briefing," called Sergeant Patterson from a central command post. Sarah's squad jogged forward and formed a line facing the senior NCO. Patterson consulted his clipboard before addressing them. "Your evaluation begins now and ends when your entire squad crosses the finish line after the 6th obstacle. Any squad member who fails to complete an obstacle results in time penalties for the entire team. Any squad member who requires rescue or medical attention results in immediate disqualification. He gestured toward the course layout. You'll proceed through obstacles in numerical order. Rope traverse, wall climb, puzzle box, marksmanship, load carry, and trust fall. Questions. How much time do we have? Marcus asked. There's no time limit, but faster squads receive higher ratings. The current record for this course is 37 minutes and 15 seconds, set by an upper-class squad last semester. Patterson's eyes swept across the group, pausing briefly on Sarah. Any other questions? When no one responded, Patterson stepped back and raised his hand. Squad 7, you are clear to begin. Move out. Marcus immediately sprinted toward the first obstacle, with the rest of the squad following in loose formation. Sarah brought up the rear again, but this time by choice rather than assignment. From the back, she could observe the entire team's movement and positioning, information that might prove valuable if leadership dynamics shifted during the evaluation. The rope traverse looked deceptively simple. 2 parallel ropes stretched between trees 40 feet apart, one for hands and one for feet. The challenge lay in maintaining balance and coordination while carrying full gear and weapons. Most squads lost significant time at this obstacle as members fell into the safety net below and had to restart. Marcus attacked the traverse with confidence born of expensive summer camps and private instruction. He made it across cleanly in under 2 minutes, establishing an early lead for the squad. Bradley Thompson followed with similar success, though his technique was more brute force than finesse. Jennifer struggled more than expected, her private school athletics having focused more on tennis and equestrian sports than functional fitness. She fell twice before successfully completing the traverse, burning precious minutes and visibly frustrating Marcus. Come on, Walsh. Marcus called out impatiently. We don't have all day. Kevin Park surprised everyone by crossing smoothly and efficiently, his slight build actually providing an advantage in balance and coordination. That left only Sarah, with her squad mates watching expectantly for her inevitable failure. Instead, she approached the rope traverse with calm focus, applying techniques her brother had taught her during weekend camping trips. She moved steadily, but not frantically, maintaining perfect balance and rhythm. Her crossing time was actually faster than Marcus's, a fact that registered on everyone present. Lucky, Bradley Thompson muttered, but Sarah caught a flicker of uncertainty in his expression. The wall climb was next, a 12-foot vertical barrier that required both upper body strength and teamwork to overcome. Marcus immediately began organizing the squad, positioning stronger members to boost others over the wall. Martinez, you're up first, he commanded. We'll boost you over, and you can help pull others up from the other side. It was a logical assignment that took advantage of Sarah's light weight while putting her in position to assist teammates. But Sarah sensed an undercurrent of strategy beyond simple efficiency. Marcus wanted her to succeed early in order to make her potential failure at later obstacles more dramatic. Sarah accepted the boost from Bradley and Kevin, scrambling up the wall face with practiced ease. Her months of rock climbing at a local gym had prepared her well for this type of challenge. Once over the wall, she immediately dropped a rope and began helping her teammates ascend. One by one, the squad members made it over the wall with Sarah providing assistance from above. Marcus came last, accepting her help with obvious reluctance, but recognizing the practical necessity. Time check. 9 minutes, 43 seconds, called out the evaluating instructor. Squad 7 is maintaining competitive pace. The puzzle box station proved more challenging. Each squad member had to solve a different mechanical puzzle while the team worked together on a larger group challenge. The puzzles tested spatial reasoning, pattern recognition, and patience under pressure. Sarah found herself assigned to a complex lock-picking challenge that required delicate touch and persistence. While her teammates worked on their individual puzzles, she focused intently on the mechanism before her, blocking out distractions and applying the methodical approach her brother had taught her for dealing with complex problems. 20 minutes into the evaluation, Sarah's squad had completed 3 of 6 obstacles and was running slightly ahead of the average pace. More importantly, they were functioning as a cohesive unit despite the underlying tensions. Marcus's leadership was proving effective, even if his motivations remained questionable. But as they approached the marksmanship station, Sarah sensed that the real test was about to begin. This was where her natural abilities would be most apparent, and where her squadmates' assumptions would face their first serious challenge. The marksmanship obstacle required each squad member to engage targets at varying distances while the rest of the team provided spotting and support. It was designed to test individual skill while maintaining team cohesion under pressure. As they received their briefing from the range instructor, Sarah noticed Marcus exchanging glances with Bradley Thompson. Something was being communicated between them, some kind of plan that didn't include her input. Whatever they were planning, Sarah was ready for it. Her brother's voice echoed in her memory. When people underestimate you, that's not a disadvantage. It's an opportunity. The marksmanship station would prove whether that advice was correct. The marksmanship station occupied a natural depression in the terrain, with firing positions arranged along a ridge overlooking targets at distances ranging from 50 to 300 meters. Staff Sergeant Coleman, a former Marine sniper with 2 combat tours, oversaw this portion of the evaluation with the intense focus of someone who understood that precision under pressure could mean the difference between life and death. Each squad member will engage 5 targets, Coleman announced as Sarah's squad approached the firing line. You'll have 2 minutes per shooter, with the rest of your team providing spotting assistance. Hits count for points, but speed matters too. Miss your window, and your squad takes a time penalty. Marcus immediately began organizing the shooting order, placing himself first to establish the pace. I'll lead off and show everyone how it's done, he announced with characteristic confidence. Bradley, you're second, then Jennifer, then Park. Martinez, you'll anchor. Sarah recognized the strategy immediately. By placing her last, Marcus ensured that any failure on her part would be magnified in the context of the overall squad performance. If the first 4 shooters performed well and she struggled, it would appear that the scholarship student had let down her more qualified teammates. Why don't we put our strongest shooter first? Kevin Park suggested quietly. That way we can establish a high standard and build momentum. I am our strongest shooter, Marcus replied dismissively. My father had me working with professional instructors since I was 10 years old. I've won junior competitions across 3 states. Sarah said nothing, but she remembered her conversation with Sergeant Martinez after her first range session. The weapons instructor had seemed genuinely impressed by her natural ability, using words like instinctive and exceptional. But she had learned long ago that actions spoke louder than arguments. Marcus took his position at the firing line with practiced confidence, adjusting his rifle sling and checking his scope settings with the efficiency of someone who had indeed received extensive professional training. His form was textbook perfect, and his pre-shot routine spoke of countless hours of practice. The first target appeared at 100 meters, a standard silhouette that popped up for 3 seconds before disappearing. Marcus engaged smoothly, his shot breaking just as the target began to drop. Hit! The second target appeared at 200 meters, requiring a slight adjustment for range and wind. Another clean hit. Marcus continued through his sequence with methodical precision, scoring 4 hits out of 5 possible. His only miss came on the final target at maximum range, where a sudden gust of wind pushed his shot slightly left of center. Still, it was an impressive performance that drew approving nods from the other squad members. 4 out of 5 in 1 minute, 43 seconds, Staff Sergeant Coleman announced. Solid shooting. Bradley Thompson followed with a similar performance, though his technique was slightly less refined than Marcus's. He managed 3 hits out of 5, with his misses coming on the longer-range targets where his lack of advanced training became apparent. Jennifer Walsh surprised everyone, including herself, by scoring 3 hits as well. Her country club shooting lessons had focused more on clay pigeons than precision marksmanship, but she adapted well to the stationary targets and proved that her hand-eye coordination was better than anyone had expected. Kevin Parks struggled with the rifle, which was too large for his slight frame, and caused him to fight the weapon rather than work with it. He managed only 2 hits, both on the closer targets where raw accuracy could overcome technical deficiencies. As the squad scores accumulated, Marcus appeared increasingly confident. Their total of 12 hits out of 20 attempts was respectable, though not exceptional. More importantly, from his perspective, the performance differential between the scholarship students and the legacy admissions was becoming apparent. "All right, Martinez," Marcus called out as Sarah approached the firing line. "Try not to embarrass us too badly. Just do your best, and we'll call it good enough." The condescending tone was intentional, designed to increase pressure and undermine Sarah's confidence. Several members of other squads had gathered to watch, drawn by the obvious tension within the group. Sarah ignored the commentary and began her pre-shot preparations with calm deliberation. She adjusted the rifle sling to fit her smaller frame, checked the scope settings, and established her natural point of aim. Her movements were economical and purposeful, without the flashy demonstration of technique that Marcus had displayed. Staff Sergeant Coleman observed her setup with professional interest. As a former sniper, he recognized genuine competence when he saw it, regardless of its source or packaging. Sarah's fundamentals were solid, but more importantly, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who trusted her abilities without needing to prove anything to observers. "Targets will begin appearing in 10 seconds, Coleman announced. "Shooter ready?" "Ready," Sarah replied simply. The first target popped up at 75 meters, an easy shot by any reasonable standard. Sarah's rifle cracked almost instantly, the shot breaking so quickly that several observers weren't sure she had actually aimed. The target dropped with a clean center hit. The second target appeared at 150 meters, requiring a slight elevation adjustment. Again, Sarah's shot broke within seconds of target appearance, scoring another center hit. Her shooting rhythm was notably different from her predecessors. Faster, more instinctive, with less deliberate aiming process. Marcus frowned as he watched Sarah engage the third target at 200 meters. Her technique didn't match what he had been taught at expensive shooting schools. She wasn't following the extended aiming sequence that instructors had drilled into him through years of formal training. Yet her bullets continued finding their marks with disturbing consistency. The fourth target presented a more challenging scenario, a partial silhouette at 250 meters, exposed for only 2 seconds. Most cadets struggled with this target due to the compressed time window and reduced target area. Sarah's shot broke just as the target began to retract, scoring what appeared to be another solid hit. 4 for 4, Coleman called out, his professional demeanor not quite hiding his obvious interest in Sarah's performance. The final target would appear at 300 meters, the maximum range for the exercise, and a distance that had challenged even Marcus with his years of formal training. The target exposure time would be reduced to just 90 seconds, barely enough time for most shooters to establish proper sight picture and breathing rhythm. Sarah settled into her final firing position, her breathing controlled and even. She had engaged targets at this range before during weekend trips with her brother, though never under evaluation conditions. The fundamentals remained the same: sight alignment, breathing control, trigger squeeze, follow through. The distant target popped up as a small silhouette against the far hillside, difficult to distinguish even through magnified optics. Sarah's scope settled on the target as she controlled her breathing, waiting for the natural pause between heartbeats that would provide the steadiest platform for her shot. The rifle cracked once, the sound echoing across the valley. The target remained visible for another 30 seconds, giving observers time to confirm what Coleman's spotting scope had already revealed. "Center hit," Coleman announced, his voice carrying a note of professional respect that made several squad members look at each other with surprise. 5 out of 5 in 1 minute, 12 seconds. The firing line fell silent as the implications registered. Sarah had not only matched Marcus's hit count, she had exceeded it with a perfect score while shooting significantly faster than any of her teammates. "That's impossible," Bradley Thompson muttered. "Nobody shoots that fast on their first evaluation." "Maybe she got lucky," Marcus said, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. He had watched Sarah's performance through borrowed binoculars and recognized technique when he saw it, even if it differed from his own training. Staff Sergeant Coleman overheard the comments and addressed the squad directly. Luck doesn't produce 5 consecutive center hits at varying ranges. That was skilled marksmanship under pressure, the kind that saves lives in combat situations. The praise stung Marcus more than any direct criticism could have. He had spent years developing his shooting skills with professional instructors and expensive equipment, viewing his marksmanship ability as one of his defining advantages over less privileged cadets. Sarah's performance suggested that natural talent and determination might matter more than formal training and financial resources. Time check, 23 minutes, 15 seconds, Coleman announced. Squad 7 maintains competitive pace with strong marksmanship scores. As the squad prepared to move to the 5th obstacle, the group dynamic had shifted noticeably. Jennifer Walsh found herself looking at Sarah with new interest, while Kevin Park seemed energized by seeing another scholarship student excel. Marcus and Bradley appeared more subdued, though Sarah suspected their reaction would intensify rather than diminish as the evaluation continued. The load carry station required each squad member to transport a 40-pound sandbag across 400 meters of rough terrain, including stream crossings and hill climbs. It was designed to test endurance, determination, and mutual support under physical stress. This is where size matters, Marcus announced, apparently attempting to reassert his leadership authority. The bigger team members will handle the heavier loads, while the smaller ones provide support roles. He gestured towards Sarah. Martinez, you can carry extra water and medical supplies while the rest of us handle the real work. It was another obvious slight, treating Sarah as a support player rather than a full participant despite her superior performance at the previous obstacle. But before Sarah could respond, Staff Sergeant Coleman intervened. Every squad member carries the standard load, he stated firmly. No exceptions, no substitutions. That's the point of the exercise. Marcus's jaw tightened at being corrected in front of his squad, but he couldn't argue with a direct instruction from an evaluating NCO. The load carry would proceed according to regulations, without the artificial accommodations he had tried to create. Sarah shouldered her 40-pound sandbag without comment, adjusting the straps to distribute the weight evenly across her small frame. The load was significant, nearly 30% of her total body weight, but she had prepared for this challenge through months of progressively heavier training runs. The 400-meter course wound through dense woods across a shallow stream and up a steep hill before returning to the starting point. Other squads were scattered across the route at various stages of completion, some moving smoothly as coordinated units, while others struggled with individual members falling behind. Marcus set an aggressive pace from the beginning, clearly intending to test his teammates' endurance and expose any weaknesses. He and Bradley pulled ahead quickly, their longer strides and greater upper body strength providing natural advantages in carrying heavy loads. Jennifer Walsh began struggling within the first 100 meters, the unfamiliar weight throwing off her balance and stride rhythm. Kevin Park stayed close to help her navigate obstacles, but his own slight build made the load increasingly burdensome as the course progressed. Sarah found herself in an unexpected position as the squad spread out along the trail. Her smaller size was actually an advantage in maintaining balance with the awkward load, while her superior cardiovascular fitness allowed her to maintain pace even under the additional weight. Halfway through the course, as they forded the stream crossing, Jennifer stumbled on the slippery rocks and nearly dropped her sandbag. Sarah immediately moved to assist, helping stabilize her roommate while ensuring that both their loads remained secure. "Thanks," Jennifer gasped, clearly struggling with both the physical demands and the realization that her assumptions about Sarah might have been incorrect. "Stay close," Sarah replied. "We finished this together." The final hill proved to be the most challenging section, with loose gravel and steep grades that tested every squad member's determination. Marcus and Bradley maintained their lead, but their pace slowed noticeably as fatigue accumulated. Kevin Park fell further behind, his face flushed red with exertion. Sarah found herself in the unusual position of being the strongest performer on the most physically demanding obstacle. Her years of distance running had built the kind of sustained endurance that translated directly to load carrying, while her mental toughness allowed her to push through discomfort that was slowing her teammates. As they crested the hill for the final descent to the finish line, Sarah made a decision that would define her relationship with her squad for the remainder of their academy careers. Instead of pushing ahead to establish her individual superiority, she dropped back to pace with Kevin Park, encouraging him through the final difficult section. "Almost there," she called out to the entire squad. "Let's bring everyone home together." Marcus looked back with surprise as Sarah's voice carried across the course. For the first time since the evaluation began, she was taking a leadership role, rallying the team rather than simply performing her individual tasks. The squad crossed the load carry finish line with a respectable time, having maintained unit integrity while completing a physically demanding challenge. More importantly, they had begun to function as an actual team rather than a collection of individuals pursuing personal agendas. 28 minutes, 37 seconds overall, announced the evaluating instructor. One obstacle remaining. The Trust Fall Station waited ahead, the mysterious final challenge that Sergeant Patterson had mentioned during his initial briefing. As they approached the final obstacle, Sarah could see a complex arrangement of ropes, platforms, and safety equipment that would require absolute cooperation between squad members. Whatever the trust fall entailed, Sarah sensed that it would test more than physical abilities. The previous obstacles had begun to reshape her squad's dynamics, but the final challenge would determine whether those changes represented genuine growth or temporary necessity. Marcus was clearly aware that his leadership position had been undermined by Sarah's performance, and she suspected he would use the final obstacle to reassert his authority. The question was whether the rest of the squad would follow his lead or trust their own observations about who had actually earned their respect. As they received their briefing for the trust fall, Sarah prepared herself for the most important test of the day, not just of her individual abilities, but of her capacity to earn acceptance from teammates who had begun the evaluation convinced of her inadequacy. The final 40 seconds of her cadet career's defining moment were about to begin. The Trust Fall Station loomed before Squad 7 like something from a medieval siege engine. A 30-foot tower constructed from logs and steel cables dominated the clearing, with platforms at various heights connected by narrow beams, rope bridges, and cargo nets. At the base of the structure, a complex pulley system fed multiple ropes through anchor points, creating what appeared to be an elaborate belay network. Master Sergeant Williams, the station commander, was a mountain warfare specialist who had earned his reputation training elite units in extreme environments. His weathered face and deliberate movement spoke of someone who had seen the consequences of failed teamwork in unforgiving conditions. "The trust fall is exactly what it sounds like," Williams explained as Squad 7 gathered around the base of the tower. One team member climbs to the top platform and jumps backward into space. The other 5 control the belay ropes that determine whether that person lands safely or experiences a very unpleasant impact. Sarah studied the rigging system with growing understanding. The jumper would be secured to multiple ropes controlled by their teammates, but the safety margin depended entirely on coordination and timing between the rope handlers. Too much slack and the jumper would fall too far. Too much tension and the ropes could snap under sudden loading. "Here's the catch," Williams continued. "The jumper can't see their team once they're on the platform. They have to trust completely in their teammates' abilities and commitment. The rope handlers can't see the jumper during the critical moment. They have to work together based on verbal communication and shared understanding of each person's role." Marcus stepped forward immediately. "I'll take the jump. I've done similar exercises at leadership camps, and I have experience with high-angle rope systems." Williams nodded non-committally. "The jumper roll rotates through the squad randomly. You don't get to choose." He pulled 6 colored tokens from a canvas bag, holding them out for each squad member to select blindly. "Red token jumps first. Sarah reached into the bag and felt the smooth surface of a plastic token between her fingers. She pulled it out and looked at the bright red surface with a mixture of anticipation and dread. Of course, she had drawn the most vulnerable position, the role that would require absolute trust in teammates who had spent the day questioning her competence. "Looks like Martinez gets the honor," Williams announced. "The rest of you will control the belay system according to my instructions." Marcus's jaw tightened visibly. Having Sarah in the jumper position meant he couldn't control her success or failure directly. Instead, he would have to actively contribute to her safety, a responsibility that conflicted with his desire to see her fail and validate his prejudices. "This is perfect," Bradley Thompson muttered to Marcus. "If something goes wrong, it won't be our fault. These systems are complicated, and we haven't had time for proper training." Williams apparently possessed exceptionally sharp hearing. "Let me clarify something for you cadets. This exercise is not designed to injure participants. The safety margins are substantial, and the equipment is inspected daily. However, the quality of your teamwork directly impacts the jumper's experience. Poor coordination results in hard landings, rope burns, and general unpleasantness." The Master Sergeant's eyes swept across the squad. "More importantly, this exercise reveals character under pressure. I've seen squads sabotage their own members due to personal conflicts. I've also seen individuals overcome those conflicts when they realize that someone's safety depends on their performance." Sarah began studying the tower structure, planning her climb route, and trying to estimate the timing factors involved in the jump sequence. The platform at the top appeared to be about 30 feet above ground level, with clear space for a backward fall of approximately 15 feet before the belay ropes would arrest her descent. "Before we begin," Williams announced, "I need to brief the rope team on their responsibilities and safety procedures." He led Marcus, Bradley, Jennifer, and Kevin to the base of the tower, where 5 separate ropes fed through the pulley system. Each rope handler would control one line, with specific responsibilities for managing tension and coordination during the jump sequence. "This isn't a simple belay operation," Williams explained. "Each rope carries a different load percentage, and the timing of your responses determines the jumper's trajectory and landing characteristics. You'll receive commands from me, but you also need to communicate with each other constantly." Sarah listened to the briefing while examining her climbing route. The tower construction was solid, but not particularly challenging from a technical standpoint. The real difficulty would come at the top, when she would have to step backward off a platform with nothing but empty space behind her. "Martinez, you'll have approximately 2 minutes to reach the platform," Williams called out. "Once you're in position, I'll verify the rope system and give you the jump command. After that, your safety depends entirely on your team's performance." Sarah nodded and approached the base of the tower. The first section was a simple ladder climb, followed by a traverse across a cargo net, then a final vertical ascent using wooden rungs attached to the main support beam. As she began climbing, Sarah became aware of the conversations taking place below her. The rope team was supposed to be focusing on their equipment checks and coordination, but she could hear fragments of discussion that had nothing to do with safety procedures. "She's lighter than average," Marcus was saying. "That changes the load calculations and timing requirements." "Maybe we should mention that to Williams," Jennifer suggested. "Why?" Bradley responded. "She wanted to prove herself. Let her deal with the consequences." Sarah forced herself to concentrate on the climbing sequence, blocking out the implications of what she had overheard. Her brother had taught her that dwelling on factors outside her control was a waste of mental energy. She needed to focus on executing her part of the exercise flawlessly, regardless of what her teammates might or might not do. The cargo net section required careful attention to hand and foot placement as the flexible material shifted under her weight. Sarah moved deliberately, testing each grip point before committing her full weight. Below her, the rope team continued their preparations under Williams's watchful supervision. "Remember," the Master Sergeant was explaining, "this is a live exercise with real consequences. Professional integrity and personal character are more important than any personality conflicts you might have with your teammates. The final vertical section brought Sarah to within 10 feet of the platform. As she climbed higher, the tower swayed slightly in the wind, adding an element of instability that required constant balance adjustments. She could see the jump platform now, a small wooden surface barely large enough for one person, with a simple guardrail on 3 sides and empty space on the 4th. Platform in sight, Sarah called down, following the communication protocol Williams had established. Copy, came the reply from below. Continue climb and report when ready. The last few rungs required maximum concentration, as fatigue from the previous obstacles began affecting Sarah's grip strength and balance. But her rock climbing experience served her well, and she reached the platform without incident. The view from 30 feet above ground was simultaneously spectacular and terrifying. The entire obstacle course spread out below her, with other squads visible as small figures moving between challenges. More immediately, she could see her 5 teammates arranged around the base of the tower, each holding a rope that would control her descent. Jumper on platform, Sarah reported. Copy. Stand by for final equipment check. Williams moved between the rope handlers, verifying their positioning and reviewing the communication signals they would use during the jump sequence. Sarah watched from above, noting which team members appeared focused and prepared versus those who seemed distracted or uncertain. Marcus held his rope with obvious competence, his expensive training evident in his stance and grip. Bradley Thompson appeared less confident, but attentive to Williams's instructions. Jennifer looked nervous but determined, while Kevin Park seemed to be concentrating intensely on every detail. Jumper ready? Williams called up to the platform. Sarah looked down at her teammates one final time, meeting each person's eyes in turn. Marcus stared back with an expression that could have been concern or calculation. Bradley avoided direct eye contact entirely. Jennifer offered what might have been an encouraging nod, while Kevin gave her a clear thumbs-up signal. Jumper ready, Sarah confirmed. On my count, Williams announced. 3, 2, 1, jump. The moment of truth had arrived. Sarah stood at the edge of the platform, facing away from the drop zone with nothing but faith in her teammates between her and the ground 30 feet below. She could hear their voices calling out rope positions and tension readings, following the procedures Williams had drilled into them. But underneath the official communications, she could sense something else, an undercurrent of tension that suggested not everyone below was fully committed to her success. Sarah took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and stepped backward into empty space. The first sensation was pure weightlessness, her body dropping through the air with increasing velocity as gravity took control. The wind rushed past her ears, and for a terrifying instant, she wondered if the ropes would engage at all. Then, the belay system activated with a series of sharp tugs that arrested her fall and began controlling her descent. But something was wrong with the coordination. Instead of a smooth, controlled landing, Sarah felt herself spinning and swaying as uneven tension from different ropes threw her into an unstable trajectory. Tension on rope 3. Williams barked from below. Ease off rope 5. Sarah's descent became even more erratic as the rope handlers struggled to coordinate their responses. She was dropping faster than intended, spinning helplessly as conflicting forces acted on the belay system. Check rope 2. Williams called out urgently. Martinez is coming in hot. From her perspective, spinning through space with the ground rushing toward her, Sarah could see exactly what was happening. Marcus was following Williams's commands precisely, but Bradley Thompson appeared to be struggling with his rope handling, allowing too much slack to develop in his line. Whether it was incompetence or intentional sabotage, the result was the same. She was headed for a hard landing. With 10 feet remaining before impact, Sarah made a split-second decision that drew on every lesson her brother had taught her about taking control of situations when others failed to act. Instead of passively accepting whatever landing her teammates provided, she used her body position to influence her descent trajectory. By adjusting her posture and using the momentum from her spin, Sarah managed to align herself for a controlled impact rather than an uncontrolled crash. Her feet hit the ground first, followed by a shoulder roll that distributed the impact force across her body instead of focusing it on her legs and spine. She came to rest in a heap of tangled ropes and safety equipment, but she was conscious, mobile, and largely uninjured. The landing had been hard, but not devastating, thanks largely to her own actions during the final seconds of descent. Martinez reports status. Williams commanded as he rushed toward the landing zone. "I'm good," Sarah replied, already untangling herself from the rope system and getting back to her feet. "No injuries." Williams examined her quickly, checking for signs of hidden damage or delayed shock reactions. "That was not a textbook landing," he observed dryly. "Your rope team needs to work on coordination." Sarah looked at her 5 teammates, who were approaching the landing zone with varying expressions of relief, concern, and something that might have been disappointment on Bradley's face. "Good thing you know how to fall," Jennifer said quietly. "Yeah," Sarah replied, brushing dirt off her uniform. "Good thing." Master Sergeant Williams was clearly unhappy with the squad's performance, though he didn't elaborate on specific failures in front of the participants. "Squad 7, he announced formally. "You have completed all 6 obstacles. Report to the finish line for final evaluation." As they walked toward the designated assembly area, Sarah found herself surrounded by teammates who were looking at her with new respect, confusion, and, in some cases, barely concealed hostility. The trust fall had indeed revealed character under pressure, though perhaps not in the way that Marcus and Bradley had expected. Sarah had proven that she could maintain composure and take initiative even when her teammates let her down, literally and figuratively. But, more importantly, she had demonstrated something that no amount of money or social connections could buy, the kind of grace under pressure that marked natural leaders and earned genuine respect from those who witnessed it. The final evaluation was about to begin, and Sarah sensed that her relationship with Squad 7 would never be the same again. The finish line was marked by a simple banner stretched between 2 poles, but the significance of crossing that threshold extended far beyond the physical completion of the obstacle course. Squad 7 approached the final checkpoint with the exhausted satisfaction of having survived 6 challenging stations, though the dynamics within the group had shifted dramatically since their confident departure that morning. Captain Rodriguez waited at the evaluation station alongside Sergeant Patterson and a clipboard full of performance data. Her sharp eyes took in every detail of the squad's appearance, from their dirt-stained uniforms to the subtle changes in body language and positioning that revealed altered relationships within the group. "Squad 7, halt," Patterson commanded as they approached. "Form a line for final evaluation." Sarah took her position at the end of the formation, but this time her placement felt less like exclusion and more like a choice. She had proven herself on every obstacle, and her teammates' attitudes toward her had begun evolving throughout the day's challenges. Total course time, 36 minutes, 47 seconds, Patterson announced. "That places you in the top 15% of squads evaluated this semester." A murmur of satisfaction ran through the group. They had achieved a respectable time despite the coordination issues during the trust fall, and the competitive ranking validated their collective performance. Individual performance evaluations will be discussed privately with each cadet, Captain Rodriguez added. "However, I will share some general observations about this squad's development during today's exercise." She consulted her notes before continuing. Squad 7 began this evaluation with clear internal divisions based on assumptions about individual capabilities and team roles. Those assumptions proved to be largely inaccurate. Marcus shifted uncomfortably as the captain's words hit their target. His confident leadership had been effective in some situations, but his prejudices had nearly compromised the squad's safety during the trust fall. Effective military units are built on demonstrated competence, not social hierarchies or financial backgrounds, Rodriguez continued. Today's exercise provided opportunities to observe which cadets can perform under pressure, and which ones allow personal biases to interfere with mission success. Sarah felt a surge of validation at the captain's words, but she remained focused on maintaining her composure. The evaluation wasn't over yet, and she had learned to be cautious about celebrating too early. Cadet Martinez, Rodriguez called out suddenly. "Step forward." Sarah's heart raced as she moved to the front of the formation. Being singled out during evaluations could indicate either exceptional performance or significant problems, and she wasn't sure which category applied to her situation. "Your marksmanship performance today was outstanding," the captain announced. 5 consecutive hits with superior time management demonstrates both technical skill and composure under pressure. These are exactly the qualities we look for in future military leaders. The praise was unexpected and overwhelming. Sarah had hoped to prove herself capable, but she hadn't anticipated receiving formal recognition from the company commander. "Thank you, ma'am," Sarah replied crisply. However, Rodriguez continued, "Your most impressive performance came during the trust fall recovery. When your support team failed to provide adequate coordination, you adapted instantly to ensure your own safety. That kind of quick thinking and personal responsibility is what separates effective leaders from followers." Sarah glanced back at her squad mates, noting the range of expressions on their faces. Jennifer appeared genuinely pleased by Sarah's recognition, while Kevin Park was grinning with obvious pride. Marcus and Bradley looked more subdued, clearly processing the implications of their own performance evaluation. The rest of Squad 7 demonstrated solid individual performances across most obstacles, Rodriguez said, addressing the group as a whole. "Your leadership structure evolved throughout the day, which is exactly what should happen when new information becomes available." She paused to make eye contact with each squad member. In real military situations, the person best qualified to lead in a given situation should step forward, regardless of rank, seniority, or social status. Recognizing and adapting to changing leadership requirements is a critical skill for any military unit. Sergeant Patterson stepped forward with additional evaluation data. Squad 7's overall performance places you among the top-performing freshman squads this semester. Your marksmanship scores were exceptional, your teamwork improved throughout the exercise, and your completion time reflects strong individual conditioning and group coordination. The formal evaluation concluded with individual performance ratings and recommendations for future development. Sarah received the highest individual rating in the squad, with particular recognition for marksmanship, physical fitness, and adaptability under pressure. As the squad prepared to return to the main campus, the group dynamic had clearly transformed from the morning's obvious tensions. The hierarchy based on social status and financial background had been replaced by genuine respect for demonstrated competence. "Martinez," Marcus called out as they began the return march. "I owe you an apology." Sarah looked at him with surprise. She had expected continued hostility or at best grudging acceptance, not a direct acknowledgement of his earlier behavior. "I made assumptions about your abilities based on your background," Marcus continued. "Those assumptions were wrong, and they nearly compromised our squad's performance today." "Apology accepted," Sarah replied simply. She could have elaborated on the impact of his prejudices or demanded more extensive acknowledgement of his mistakes, but she recognized that Marcus was making a genuine effort to address his behavior. "That shooting performance was incredible," Jennifer added as they walked. "I've never seen anyone engage targets that quickly with that level of accuracy. Where did you learn to shoot like that?" "My brother taught me," Sarah explained. "He said that marksmanship was about mental discipline as much as technical skill. You have to trust your training and not overthink the process." Bradley Thompson remained quiet during the conversation, clearly still processing the day's events and his own performance. His deliberate mishandling of the rope during the trust fall hadn't gone unnoticed by the evaluators, and he was likely facing some difficult questions about his commitment to team safety. Kevin Park walked alongside Sarah with obvious satisfaction. "I knew you had it in you," he said quietly. Some of us scholarship students have been working twice as hard our entire lives just to get opportunities like this. When we finally get the chance to compete on level ground, we tend to do pretty well. As they approached the main campus, other squads were returning from their evaluations with varying degrees of success and frustration. The freshman class would spend the evening comparing experiences and performance ratings, establishing new social dynamics based on demonstrated competence rather than assumed privilege. Sarah found herself in an unexpected position as one of the highest-performing cadets in her class. The recognition felt good, but it also carried new responsibilities and expectations that she was still processing. Back in the barracks, the atmosphere was markedly different from the tension that had characterized the morning preparations. Sarah's squad mates no longer treated her as an outsider whose presence needed to be tolerated. Instead, they sought her opinions on tactical problems and included her naturally in their planning discussions. The Advanced Marksmanship program is accepting applications next semester, Jennifer mentioned as they cleaned their equipment. You should definitely apply. With scores like today's, you'd probably be accepted immediately. Sarah considered the suggestion. Advanced programs offered better training opportunities and potential fast-tracking for leadership positions, but they also required additional time commitments that might interfere with her academic work and part-time job responsibilities. I'll think about it, she replied. There are a lot of factors to consider. That evening, as Sarah lay in her bunk reviewing the day's events, she reflected on how dramatically her situation had changed. She had arrived at the academy as an outsider struggling to prove her worth to skeptical classmates. Now she was recognized as one of the top performers in her company, with opportunities for advanced training and leadership development. More importantly, she had honored her brother's memory by demonstrating the courage and competence he had always believed she possessed. Jake had been right about her having something special inside, something that couldn't be bought with money or inherited through family connections. The next morning brought new challenges and opportunities, but Sarah faced them with confidence born of proven ability rather than desperate hope. Her classmates now saw her as a valuable teammate and potential leader, not as a charity case who needed their tolerance. Captain Rodriguez called her aside after morning formation with an unexpected opportunity. Martinez, I'm recommending you for the summer leadership program at Fort Bragg. It's an intensive course designed to identify and develop future military leaders. Interested? Yes, ma'am, Sarah replied without hesitation. Good. The program is highly competitive, but your performance yesterday demonstrates exactly the kind of potential they're looking for. You've earned this opportunity through merit, not luck. As Sarah walked to her first class of the day, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced their fears and emerged victorious. The scholarship student who had been dismissed as inadequate had become one of the academy's most promising cadets in less than 24 hours. But more importantly, she had proven to herself and others that excellence comes from character, determination, and hard work, qualities that have nothing to do with financial privilege or social status. The cadets who had tried to embarrass her had instead provided the platform for her to demonstrate exactly why she deserved to be at Westfield Military Academy. Sarah Martinez had found her place among the future leaders of the military, not through luck or charity, but through the same qualities that had carried her brother through his service and sacrifice. She was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, confident in her abilities and surrounded by teammates who had learned to respect her through direct observation of her character under pressure. The Academy's motto was inscribed over the main entrance: leadership through excellence. Sarah had embodied that principle during her first major test, proving that true leadership emerges from competence, integrity, and the courage to act when others expect you to fail. Her journey at Westfield Military Academy was just beginning, but she had already established herself as someone who would earn every opportunity through performance rather than politics. The future was full of possibilities, and Sarah Martinez was ready to seize every one of them.